Sri Lanka is an island country in the northern Indian Ocean. And up until 1972, we knew it as Ceylon. It's a very diverse country. It's home to many religions and many ethnicities and many languages. It's the land of the Sinhalese and the Moors and the Burghers and the Malays and the Kafirs and the Aboriginal Veda. It also has a very rich Buddhist history. And it's because of this diversity that this island country was involved in a civil war from 1983 to 2009, over 30 years. 100,000 people died in this civil war. If you recall, Pope Francis just finished a 3-day trip to Sri Lanka, and he called on the Sri Lankans to accept each other's differences. He called on them to bring them into full inclusion, bring every person into full inclusion as a member of society. And he made this comment. He said, "It's a continuing tragedy in our world that so many communities are at war with themselves." He stated that he realizes that healing the scars of this 30-year war will not be an easy task, that they have to overcome a bitter legacy of injustice and hostility and mistrust, which only can be done by overcoming evil with good and by cultivating the virtues that foster reconciliation, solidarity, and peace. In our first reading this morning, Jonah challenged the people of Nineveh in the exact same way. He told them that they must overcome evil with good, that they had to move from their selfish practices. And as our responsorial psalm that was just sung so beautifully by our choir says, they have to move into the ability to surrender and be able to say, "Teach me your ways, O God. Let me get out of my way, my own sinful ways, and teach me your ways, O God." In Sri Lanka, there has been so much diversity that each group believed that they were the ones that were in the right, that they had all the answers. And Francis challenged that. And he talked to them and told them to get out of their own way and get into God's ways, to accept each other's differences, to seek full inclusion of each member of society. I think we're all aware this lack of acceptance of diversity, this lack of tolerance is so very prevalent in our world today. And we know and we see the chaos that results from it. The recent terrorism in Paris is a stark reminder to us that there are groups who believe that they are in the right and they have all the answers. This is exactly what Francis is confronting in our world today. We will all never, ever be the same. We will all never have the same beliefs about life, nor the same beliefs about God. And wouldn't it be boring if we did? Diversity is the spice of life. There's a great line in a wonderful new movie entitled The Imitation Game that goes like this: "Sometimes it is the people who no one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine." Now, the movie is the story of Alan Turing, the British mathematician who's often considered the father of computer science, whose top secret work as a code breaker of genius shortened World War II by years, saved millions of lives, and was so central to the Allied victory that it has often been said that the war could not have been won without what Alan Turing did. Yet he was different. And because he was different, He suffered and he was persecuted after the war. I won't give away the story, but I will say what the story challenges us about is how we treat people who are different from us, even when they make such phenomenal contributions to our world. One of the main characters in the movie, the female character, says something very interesting to Alan Turing. She says, "Do you know, this morning I was on a train that went through a city that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for you. I bought a ticket from a man who would likely be dead if it wasn't for you. I read up on my work, a whole field of scientific inquiry that only exists because of you. Now, if you wish you could have been normal, I can promise you I do not. The world is an infinitely better place precisely because you weren't." So often, we look at normal as being like us. But if we are truly honest with ourselves, we all know that there is no such thing as normal. That life is all about diversity. Daniel James Brown has written a bestseller, a wonderful new book entitled Boys in the Boat. This book celebrates the 1936 U.S. men's Olympic 8-oar rowing team. Now, this team consisted of loggers and shipyard workers and farmers from the American West. And this very unlikely group of young boys vanquished the sons of bankers and senators who were rowing for Yale and Harvard and Princeton. And they defeated the sons of British aristocrats that were rowing for Oxford and Cambridge. And they stunned the Aryan sons of the Nazi state as they rowed for gold in front of Adolf Hitler. It was this ragtag team of Americans who won Olympic gold by maintaining a sense of unity amidst diversity. This is how the writer Daniel James Brown explains how these 8 individuals of varying statures and physiques and personalities capitalized on their diversity. He wrote, "Races are won by crews, and great crews are carefully balanced blends of both physical abilities and personality types. A crew composed entirely of 8 amped-up, overly aggressive oarsmen will often degenerate into a dysfunctional brawl in a boat or exhaust itself in the first leg of a long race. Similarly, a boatload of quiet but strong introverts may never find the common core of fiery resolve that causes the boat to explode past its competitors when all seems lost. Good crews are good blends of personalities. Someone to lead the charge, someone to hold something in reserve, someone to pick a fight, someone to make peace, someone to think things through, someone to charge ahead without thinking. Somehow, all this must mesh. That's the steepest challenge. Even after the right mixture is found, each man or woman in the boat must recognize his or her place in the fabric of the crew, accept it, and accept the others as they are. It is an exquisite thing when it all comes together in just the right way." Well, we just sang, "Teach me your ways, O Lord. Help me get out of my way into your way, O Lord." And it was only when the Ninevites were able to surrender to God's way and not their ways that they were saved from destruction. Now, the people of Sri Lanka certainly needed to hear the words of Francis, to accept each other's differences and to seek full inclusion of each member of society. Certainly what Francis said a few weeks ago applies to all of us, that it is a continuing tragedy in our world that so many communities are at war with themselves. We all know that so many of our communities are at war with themselves because of our intolerance of each other. So let all of us, as we hear that challenge from Jonah, and we hear the challenge from Francis, and we hear the gospel every weekend, let's all of us look at our own prejudices, our own intolerance, our own lack of acceptance, our own judgmentalism, and reflect on the challenge given by Jonah and by Francis and the experience of that 1936 team, unity amidst diversity, and listen to that great line from the Imitation Game. Sometimes it is the people who no one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine.